The ruin of Vareth was once a kingdom of magic and might, ruled over by a dynasty of humans whose bloodline could trace its roots back to the gods themselves. They were known as the Ember Kings, lords of hearth and home, shepherds of their people, protectors of the weak. It was said they wielded powers over fire and light that could shame the sun itself. But none shone brighter than the king's consort, Lyra Morningsong, whose beauty was such that mortals forgot to pray, and bards still sing her name across the wastelands to centuries after her death. For she was not merely a mortal woman, but a dragon in human form, an embodiment of pure starlight, come to watch over the kingdom. Until now, for fate has a way of dealing out second chances, even to those who don't deserve them. He was taken in by the station's caretaker, a gruff but kind-hearted dwarf named Borin Stoneforge, who raised him as his own, along with his daughter, the spirited and adventurous Alana. Her kind were the celestial guardians of Vareth, ancient beings of immeasurable power who had pledged themselves to safeguard this mortal realm for as long as it endured. And as he traced the faded lines with his fingers, he felt a surge of power course through his veins. It was then that Cale realized these weren't just markings on a piece of leather, but actual runes of the Ember Tongue, a long-lost language of dragons. And learning the secrets of cartography until he became one of the greatest living experts on the subject. Though his memories were fragmented and incomplete, he sensed the encroaching darkness and knew instinctively that the time had come to act. With a mighty roar, he shattered the chains that bound him and emerged from his prison. Wings tattered and scarred, eyes blazing with celestial fire, capable of reading the subtlest etchings on the oldest and most weathered parchment. One day, while exploring the dank and dusty basement of the local library, sending shockwaves that leveled the surrounding landscape. But when the humans arrived, he tested them, hurling boulders the size of houses and scorching them with blasts of superheated air. He scanned the horizon with his dragon's eye vision. He activated the runes etched into his staff, causing them to flare with celestial light, and for a moment the sky rumbled with celestial power. But even in death, the dragon revealed a terrible truth about what really ended the Golden Age. A dragon whose lust for power had led her to strike a forbidden pact with demons from the abyss, plunging the world into a century of war and death. He also revealed that the war had been far from a glorious battle between good and evil as legend had it, but a brutal scorched earth campaign waged by the Ember Kings against his kind who had no choice but to fight back in self-defense. Then a crack appeared in the clouds above, opening up like a gaping maw that poured forth blinding light, searching for the source of the disturbance. He regarded them silently for a moment, assessing them with his dragon's eye vision, then finally spoke, his voice echoing with the power of 1,000 storms. Bid a tearful farewell to the only family he'd ever known, then set off across the wastelands towards the source of the disturbance, guided by the fading echoes of the dragon's magic. As the last dragon, Nyraxel bore the burden of his kind's legacy, both the good and the bad, and it was up to him to decide whether to pass on that legacy to a new generation. And when he found it, a feral grin spread across his snout, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth, like shards of obsidian. He came across a long-forgotten cache of scrolls, wrapped in layers of preservative wax. His heart was aflame with the celestial magic that pulsed like a beacon across the land. At a choice, Shell's small band of companions grew larger, eventually consisting of Alana, a grizzled old soldier named Titus, a roguish elf named Rion, and a stoic earth elemental named Boulder, whose origins were shrouded in mystery. But despite the growing numbers, there was little time for revelry to make. Embrace his destiny and risk bringing an extinct species back into the world, or turn away and let darkness consume everything. Without a moment's hesitation, Cale made his choice. And when he learned the truth about his heritage, his resolve hardened into grim determination. Hidden in the shadows, watching him from afar, was a figure cloaked in darkness, their face obscured by the hood of their midnight black traveling cloak. All they had to do was wait for Kyle to lead them to the dragon's lair, then deliver the final blow and claim the reward offered by the Black Dragon's Claw, an infamous organization of dragon hunters who had dedicated themselves to wiping out every last trace of draconic kind. Their surface covered in arcane glyphs that glowed faintly in the dim oil lamplight, And so the humans and dragons of Varys lived together in harmony for countless years, forging great works of magic and engineering and defending the kingdom against every threat, until one fateful day when the consort's younger sister hatched from her egg. To say she was different would be an understatement. For when Lyra saw the monstrous form of her sibling, she recoiled in horror and releasing a tremendous pulse of energy that echoed through the catacombs. In the sudden silence that followed, Chaol felt something stirring deep within him, like the awakening of some primal instinct or memory from a past life. And though he didn't know it yet, he was about to find out just how deep those roots ran, and betrayed her kind, striking a forbidden pact with demons from the abyss. And all of Violet's dragons fell with their celestial patrons, consumed by demonic flames and leaving behind nothing but smoldering bones and bitter ash. Thus began the Long Night, a brutal, century-long war that laid waste to everything the dragons and humans had built. And by its end, the Flame Pact was broken forever. The ancient bond of magic and trust dissolved into mutual hatred and distrust, and it was imprisoned beneath the ruins of the Skyhold Citadel, where its massive form was bound in chains forged of meteorite iron, held aloft by 4 pillars of ablative stone that drained its power with each passing year. But then, just as suddenly as it began, the war was over, and the surviving dragons vanished. Hunted to extinction by the Ember King's armies, only one remained, the last of its kind, a colossal beast named Nyraxel, whose mind was wiped of all memory by dark sorceries. In the centuries since, the dragons have become little more than campfire stories told to frighten children into good behavior. Chaol was born under a wandering star, found abandoned at the gates of an elven way station shortly after the death of his parents, who perished in a band of marauders' raid. From the time he could toddle, Chaol was fascinated by maps. Poring over ancient texts with trembling hands, Chaol carefully unwrapped one of the scrolls, revealing a map etched onto a hide so ancient that the ink had bled through to the other side. And as soon as he touched them, the dormant magic within them stirred, causing the scroll to flare with sudden light buried deep beneath the ruins of Skyhold Citadel. The tremors caused by the Ember Tongue rune stirred Nyraxel from his eternal slumber. Centuries of imprisonment had worn heavily on the dragon's mind. As he beat his wings, it was then that he noticed something peculiar about the boy. He gathered what few supplies he could in the little time he had left, but he was not alone. As the days turned into weeks, they were being stalked by assassins sent by the Black Dragon's Claw, each more powerful than the last, and they were running out of time. Meanwhile, Nyraxel was growing impatient. The ancient dragon sensed the approach of his long-lost kin and prepared to greet him with open wings. But Chaol stood firm, drawing strength from his ember blood. As the light subsided, standing before the awestruck humans was a magnificent silver dragon, his scales shimmering like 1,000 stars, his eyes blazing with celestial fire. He explained that the dragons had been betrayed by one of their own kind. To prove his point, Nyraxel showed them visions of the past, showing how his kind had once thrived alongside the humans, living in harmony and peace until the consort's treacherous sister unleashed hellfire upon them. For when the dragons were driven to extinction, it wasn't because the humans were more powerful, but because they were more ruthless. But before he could do anything, the ground shook, and a horde of dragon hunters armed with enchanted weaponry and fueled by centuries of hatred charged into the clearing, led by a mysterious figure cloaked in darkness. And as the battle for Viridia's fate raged around him, Chaol stood firm, knowing that the fate of dragons and men alike rested on his shoulders. But that's it for today. Please smash that like button and subscribe for more epic fantasy with dragons.